If I had wings like Nora's dove, I'd fly up a river to the one I love. Fare thee well, on me. Fare thee well. Where's the chat? Chat. Where's the chat? I just signed in to do the chat. The woman I love is long and tall. She moves her body like a cannon. Oh, honey. Oh, Amber, hello. Yes, we're looking at transits. Mostly some recent ones, what events correlated with them, and how they may have affected you. So that's why I was waiting for people to show up. It's so funny though, because so much has been going on. Excuse me, I always say that at the beginning of these, but really, like this time, there's a lot going on. You turned your bell on. You missed me. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Or you missed me. Past tense. Lovely. Well, I'm glad you're here. And I'm trying to get my acrylics off so I can grow my real nails out because acrylics are expensive, you know? So I hope you can hear me. You, Fort Thomas, Kentucky, Amber. If I do synastry today, I'll try and hit a couple people with some synastry as a little refresher. After we go through some events, this is something I like to do, so humor me because I'm a news junkie. And this is mundane astrology in a way. Mundane astrology was the first astrology. When our ancient Mesopotamian ancestors first were using the stars as omens and signs, they were looking at terrestrial events, right? Not just people's lives. Natal astrology came later. This, which way should I be? Which way? Which way? Relax. Don't do it when you want to come. Oh, anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, mundane astrology. So, a lot of the omens that ancient Mesopotamians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, etc., this whole area, this region, from about, excuse me, 4000 BCE until about 1000 BC, or I guess 1160 ish, was when the great late Bronze Age collapse happened, which is interesting because Pluto went into Aquarius around that time that happened, which was 1160 BCE. But it was a whole 100-year range that this encompassed, right? The whole ancient Mesopotamian region had been relatively stable, right, for thousands of years, for several thousand years at least. When I say stable, I don't mean there wasn't fighting and conquering. Oh, I look great and sound great, thank you. So, it doesn't mean that all this sort of warring and everything was going on. I mean, it could be very brutal. For the average laborer, though, and farmer, it wasn't a whole big change. They typically had to keep on doing what they were doing. Like serfs in the Middle Ages, right? They were part of the land almost. But for nobility, things could get really hairy, right? I think it was Sargon the Great, or maybe it was someone else. But one of these, Assyrian kings, when he was experiencing a rebellion, he went to the rebel nobility and flayed them alive. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, but That's, if you know what that is, that's a pretty horrific way to, unlive someone. So I don't feel like I sound great. I feel like I'm coming down with something. My daughter was sick and my voice is always hoarse, but I'll put this over here. It's naughty stuff. I tried to keep my mise en scène so I didn't have anything naughty in the frame. So anyway, so mundane astrology was really the first astrology. What did people want to know? Kings wanted to know if they were going to lose a war, right? If there was going to be a battle or a rebellion. These are big events, right? These are events that affected potentially the whole region. Yeah. So this is what people were most concerned with in the beginning. Natal astrology, I have to look up again when that came. I have all my books right, or not all, but I've got like 6 books right there because I'm the kid that crams for class before, and I'm like, wait, I gotta double check some of these dates and facts and things like that. So, you know, so what we look for with mundane astrology nowadays is big events in the world. I focused on US history with a lot of these just to make it relatable for my primary audience, which happens to be American. But I got to start doing more international stuff because I'm an internationalist, the opposite of a nationalist, if you will. And we have lots of international friends and people that, oh God, I have a muffin top. Ugh. I'm trying to like work on this. People always tell me, oh, it's fine, it's cute. It doesn't feel cute. And I need to fit into my bathing suit soon. So I got a one piece because I'm scared about going to the pool with my daughter with all the anti trans bigotry going on. And believe it or not, I don't always pass. I do pass sometimes. I do, believe it or not. I do. But anyway, so we look at the news with mundane astrology. We look at a lot of outer planet stuff these days, but all the inner planet stuff is important too. We'll see these mini cycles within bigger cycles, right? And think about mundane astrology in ancient Mesopotamia. They didn't have outer planets. Saturn took on all those significations, right? When we discovered the outer planets, Uranus, not my anus, but Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Yeah. And those rulerships they weren't assigned the same way that the traditional rulerships were assigned. So it wasn't arbitrary, but may as well have been. So it just so happened that Uranus had been invested with meaning through an experiment by a guy named John Varley in the late 19th century or the mid 19th century. He was a contemporary of William Blake. But anyway, I've talked about this elsewhere, but he was very interested in finding out what the significations would be for Uranus. And so he predicted that an unforeseen malefic event would happen on a specific date to him based on Uranus transit, and his house burned down. And he was so excited about being right while his house burned down, he started scribbling all this stuff down in his notes, according to his son. So Uranus was assigned to the next sequential sign, Aquarius, because they left Saturn just with Capricorn. And so they said, okay, next we have Aquarius. Let's put, let's put Uranus there. And then we have Pisces. Let's put Neptune there. And it just so happened, like the idea of Neptune and water and stuff. You see, so Pisces and Neptune sort of took on each other's meanings. All these fake meanings started bleeding into each other. And not that we don't use them. I use these with Neptune too. So anyway, my stupid hair. Gotta stop looking at it. But then Pluto was discovered, and Pluto was first going to be assigned to the next sequential sign, Aries. But at the time, astrologers were like, that doesn't make any sense. Pluto's the god of the underworld, sounds more like Scorpio. So then they sort of put Pluto in Scorpio because of the symbolism and displaced Mars in some ways. Except for in esoteric astrology, they kept Mars as the esoteric ruler. So, but anyway, enough about that stuff. It's just important to know in terms of transits because I use the traditional rulerships. I don't treat the outer planets as rulers of anything. So, so anyway, but let's get right into it. If anyone's got any questions, put it in the chat. We'll keep looking at the chat because this is important stuff. So, one of the aspects we talked about not too long ago. Wait, let me double check real quick. Because I need live chat. There we go. I need live chat. So I know if people are saying stuff or not. Oh, there's one viewer? What happened? What did I do? Oh my gosh. Where'd everyone go? Oh, well. Huh. Ain't that a bee? One viewer? Are you kidding me? Anyway, yeah, like the stream, subscribe and share. Thank you, Lizzie. I really appreciate it. So, goodness, wherever. Oh, and please, tell us in the comments if you've had any experiences with this transit. Lizzie, you're the only one. Oh my God. That's so wild. I mean, there were 10 people and then they all disappeared. So, anyway, it doesn't matter because this is recorded, but anyway, that's sort of wild. Wow. So, well, we'll get back into it. So the thing about astrology too, particularly in mundane astrology, is it situates us in time and space. You can tell, you're here, Courtney. Oh my gosh, why does it say one person? Why does it say one person? Maybe it's this thing that's all screwed up. I don't know. Well, lovely. Anyway, so yeah, like the stream, subscribe, share, and what's the other thing I was thinking of? Oh, comment, please. Comment, if you had any experiences with any of these transits. I see a cobweb. Gemini attention span. Oh, look, a bird. I always say, nothing can derail the Gemini thirst for knowledge, like looking over there. So, anyway, the thing that mundane astrology does is situate us in time and space. Because, like I mentioned, Pluto just went into Aquarius. And that correlates with the late Bronze Age collapse, which was one of the most significant events in human history. It changed the world. Oh, well, it changed the world from the Levant to Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, North Africa, right? Greece and the Mediterranean, all that area was sort of reshaped and reformed. But not to dwell on that. I've done other videos about Pluto going through Aquarius, and they are very significant events that tend to happen. So, and we always tend to see the rise of an ascendant power. But within this cycle, too, we have, Uranus and Taurus. And Uranus is about to go into Gemini, which is a very significant thing. And we see that, especially with the United States and its history, correlating with other significant events. So we've got this big whammy coming on. And then, right, within that, we have a Neptune-Saturn conjunction happening in 2025, around the same time the Uranus thing is happening. And this is another big cycle, right, that correlates also with the decline of empires and the crumbling of empires. So anyway, the Saturn thing too, right? Saturn on its own has entered Pisces. That is a cycle in and of itself, a 3-year cycle. So we've just entered a greater cycle of 200 years with, we had the great conjunction in around the winter solstice of 2020. It's when Jupiter and Saturn emerged into a conjunction in Aquarius. It ended a 200-year period of these conjunctions being in earth signs, right? And now they're going to be in air signs. Whereas the last 200 years was more about establishment, about, what's the word? Um, anyway, about established power, right? About structure, that sort of stuff. Whereas this next period, governed by air signs, is going to be a lot less structured, a lot less certain. There was a lot of certainty that things would just go on like that forever, you know? So, well, Pluto entered Capricorn 2007, 2008. So, you know. Anyway, but the previous 200 years, I'm sorry, were about, yeah, setting things in a certain, right? Everyone thought in the 1990s, if you ever heard of this guy, Francis Fukuyama, he wrote that it was the end of history once the Soviet Union fell. It was the end of history. It was a unipolar world. Everyone acted like that would go on forever, but now here we are. We're entering a multipolar world. And that's something we have to be aware of with these other cycles going on. But now let's talk about some transits because the end of March, sort of lumping that into these April transits, we talked about that. When I did March transits, and I gotta prepare for May already. My birthday's in May. I'm early Gemini, so you're a Pluto person. You survived. You're a Cancer rising. So what did transits mean for you at this moment? Well, sorry, I'm coming down with something. Well, for example, here, let's see, put Cancer rising up. Cancer rising. So Mars is going through your first house right now. That can be quite agitating, especially when Mars is in fall, right? So, I mean, you got to be careful about, first of all, don't cut yourself. Be careful when using knives, right? Mars, especially in fall, can cause accidents, can cause falls, right? Quick accidents. So be careful, right? Just watch yourself. You might have a lot of frenetic energy. You might be, like I said, agitated and a bit angry, you know, um, because the first house is you, right? And Mars is not happy in Cancer. And every time you're going to have Mars go through your first house, you're probably going to have this little agitation time. But it's not a big deal, it doesn't last too long. So, um, and we could look at all that sort of stuff. Yeah, oh, this eclipse, though, for Cancer risings coming up is a big deal because it's in the 10th house. So, you can look right now at some of these transits that have been happening. So, let's look, for example, March 30th. Days. So, March 30th. Well, let's see what the chat is saying here. Um, Jupiter going through your 11th house is going to be lovely. Now, what else? Well, Saturn going through your ninth house is sort of like you're going to get challenged on everything you believe. You're in phlebotomy clinicals right now. Are you having third or ninth house stuff happening? Is that what's going on? Phlebotomy? Or is that for you personally, or is that an exam? If it's for you personally, I'm thinking more. You know, oh, you're going to be a phlebotomist, right? You're going to extract blood from people. There was a phlebotomist at one of my doctors, and I swear to God, she was so bad. She was younger. I mean, she had to be like 20. And she was like, "Oh, that's not it." And I'm like, "Are you gonna poke me like six effing times?" Happy early birthday, thank you. It's like a month away, over a month away. So a little over a month. But anyway, let's go to March 30th, shall we? Let's go to March 30th. Let's go to March 30th, huh? Oh. I can already tell I'm gonna need more water soon. My throat is getting sore, so my daughter must have got me sick. Oh. Anyway, so let's go to March 30th. So on March 30th, you see Saturn was making an exact, or we should say it this way. Mars was perfecting a trine to Saturn. We say it that way because Saturn's the slower planet. And Mars is, what's he doing? He's approaching this perfected trine point. You see, in ancient astrology, they would sort of see these aspects as sort of ingressing, being exact, around the 3 degrees range, right? Where they're sort of what was called scrutinizing each other. Because the whole theory behind aspects was that there's a line of sight, right? That planets are casting rays or gazes. You see, the ancient Greek perception or idea about vision was that the eyes are casting rays and having them reflected back, right? And there's this idea of witnessing or testifying. Testimony is a legal thing between planets in ancient astrology. So that was the ancient aspect theory. And there were things called superior aspects, where if a planet was in the superior position, which is basically like earlier in the zodiac, and making one of these aspects, which are, a sextile, a trine, a square, those three. Because you can't have an opposition like that. Neither planet is superior. And you can't have a conjunction like that. So, but these aspects were seen as sort of starting as soon as they would ingress into these signs that were aspecting each other. So, for example, it's like, okay, well, Saturn being in Pisces at all and Mars being in Cancer at all, that these two are trined by sign, that Pisces and Cancer are trined by sign. You see, because in ancient astrology, again, by sign aspects were a thing. So for me, right, what I say your Saturn return, for those of you who have Saturn in Pisces, I would say your Saturn return began, regardless of the degree, when Saturn entered Pisces. And you would even notice that stuff start to come on and ingress in there. Now, within 3 degrees, that's the money spot. They have this thing called the money shot. I don't know if anyone remembers Nancy Grace. She was talking about the money shot. So it was really funny hearing her say that. I gotta stay in frame. Gotta stay in frame. Gotta stay in frame. I don't know what I'm singing. I just made whatever this is up. Watch, someone's gonna be like, no, that's from so and so. That's what someone sings in The Return to Anal Island or something. I don't know. So anyway, but we see this sort of thing. But that's a little bit of ancient aspect doctrine. When a planet is superior to another, it dominates the other in a way. So I'm going to use the F word here really quick, but astrologer Alan White, according to Chris Brennan, he would say it's who's fucking who, right? So Saturn in this position is giving it to Mars. So what that does symbolically, it's sort of like Saturn restraining Mars. So if you remember here, it's like Saturn tells Mars to chill. So for those of you that followed my discussion of the transits for March, which I'm sure only a couple of you did, a couple of you loving supporters out there, I love you so much. Thank you. And the rest of you, please like the stream and subscribe if you haven't. I can't tell how many people are there right now because I have the windows all shuffled around. So anyway, one thing I noticed with this transit, and some themes that I wrote down with this way back then, was renewed optimism, addressing systemic issues, and getting things done. And not comfortable things. It's sort of like Saturn puts Mars to work, typically after Mars did some bad stuff. So usually these events follow a violent event, or they often do, rather. So we'll see, for example, a shooting of some sort, and then the consequent responses with the Mars-Saturn trine, or the Saturn-Mars trine. So you see here, we had a couple of things that came up. So gun control, right, and COVID. Quite frequently, we saw events with these transits, particularly since 2020, right? So some examples I had marked down were, March 21st, 2021. That's when Biden, well, he signed this on March 11th, but it was around the orb, right? I was giving it a 7-degree orb, which is the modern orb, right? They didn't have orbs in ancient astrology. It was the 3 degrees, and then it was the entering the sign. Although for the moon, there was sort of the allowance for 15 degrees for a conjunction, or what was, I forget what the ancient term was. There's an ancient term for it. But the idea wasn't that the planets were blending in some way in an aspect like a trine or whatever. The idea is that they're testifying to each other. So the topics of one place are sort of inserting themselves into a topic of another place. Now, depending on if there is a superior or inferior aspect, but that's a whole other discussion for another time. So I'll do a single thing about aspects so we don't waste time here. But anyway, Biden signed the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, right? Remember that? That helped a lot of people that were out of work and struggling. They extended the child tax credit and made direct cash payments. So, and unemployment insurance. So those were all important things that actually stimulated the economy at the time. Of course, people argue that created inflation, and perhaps it did, but inflation has been shown to be driven probably half, 50% driven by corporate greed, by price gouging. We saw that with eggs. So it turns out that eggs were just price gouging. There wasn't a significant egg shortage, right? They were able to capitalize on the hysteria around the flu or bird flu stuff and then charge 3 times more than they typically were. So, and then March 14th of 2019, there was a mass shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand. It was a mosque. And this was a big deal. I mean, 51 people were killed and 41 people were injured. But it resulted, once the trine really set in, it resulted in the Arms Amendment of 2019, which banned semi-automatic weapons, period, in New Zealand. So, and they rarely had shootings before. But you see, when you eliminate that risk, when you eliminate those particular weapons, then the risk for a mass casualty event is a lot lower. And that's one thing that we don't seem to understand here. But this time around, March 30th of 2023, there was the Nashville shooting. So it turns out the shooter was assigned female at birth, but apparently used he, they pronouns. So they were assaulted in the media for being trans, which seems sort of irrelevant when it comes into the whole thing. The weapons used were the important part. They couldn't have done what they did without their assault weapons. It's a lot harder to do that with just handguns. Let's put it that way. It's even harder to shoot handguns if you ever shot handguns versus ARs, right? I've shot both plenty of times, and it's a lot easier to shoot the AR, right, and to aim with the AR. So, anyway, that's really important because these weapons. I'm not going to try and stand on a soapbox here because it's not like I support banning everything, but it's easier to go buy one than it is to get a license to drive a car. I mean, to me, that's absolutely bonkers. So, 3 children and 3 adults were killed. My daughter's 9 years old. The first thing I thought of was my daughter. But what immediately happened? Kids, youth, young people, Gen Z and younger, whatever the new generation is called that my daughter's a part of, the Pluto and Capricorn kids, right? These kids marched. They held nationwide demonstrations right after the 30th. So April 3rd, right? Over 1,000 Nashville students walked out of class and descended down on the Tennessee Capitol, and they were demanding stricter gun control. And the funny thing is the Tennessee legislatures were working on loosening gun control even more. And then three of of the state house representatives decided to march with the students demanding gun control. And these three were then brought up for expulsion. In fact, they were just expelled yesterday from their seats on the legislature. Well, two were, the two ones who were black. The one white woman got to keep her seat. So, but she even called it out herself. Anyway, and we'll get to some of this stuff in just a little bit because something else just happened too. And we'll talk about that with regard to it. But you see how this is sort of indicative of Saturn coming up and being like, whoa, Mars, you need to chill here. So Saturn here is being represented by these kids, and they're also, I shouldn't say kids, they're students. They're acting more adult than a lot of the adult lawmakers who are more concerned with being able to play with their toys, right? They're not defending themselves against the government. My dad used to say that BS. We have the Second Amendment to defend ourselves against the government. Dude, they have drones. Barack Obama killed a U.S. citizen, al-Awlaki. I forget his first name, al-Awlaki, but killed him and his kids in Yemen with drones. And these were American citizens. Well, at least al-Awlaki was. But you see here, who are you gonna fight? You gonna fight drones? Come on, you gonna fight tanks? It's absolutely bonkers. It's stupid, right? But that's somehow the justification for the Second Amendment. But there was a study done about AR owners, and a good cross section of them just said they were fun to shoot. So is fun to shoot more important than the lives of your children? My first thought when this happened was my 9-year-old daughter. That was my first thought. So the identity of the shooter didn't make any difference to me. It was more like, well, it did make a difference to me because I'm like, you a-hole, you just screwed a bunch of the rest of us and you brought more attention to us. We don't know what the shooter was suffering or whatever, but to do that to children is beyond despicable. And I can't imagine what the parents were feeling, I can't imagine. I don't want to imagine. So, but this did result in nationwide campaigns. I mean, well, we'll get to some of this stuff in a little bit because this bleeds into the next transit, which is Mercury, Mars, the sextile. So, another thing that happened is there started to be talks of peace around the whole Ukraine-Russia deal. China was sort of starting to facilitate them, and sort of playing the Saturnian role of like, hey, let's chill for a second. And the United States has been quite martial about it too. It doesn't really help when people are giving arms to fuel the whole thing. What they need to do and what the United States really should have been doing is trying to broker a peace deal rather than leaving it to China, who ends up looking really good in the whole thing. But we haven't even gotten there yet. But there was the sort of the impulse to be like, hey, let's slow this down. And Zelensky was having active talks with China, so about coming up with terms. So they actually have been coming up with terms of what a peace deal would look like. Now, they don't agree on anything, and a lot of the disputes are territorial, right? And we'll see if any of those can be resolved because Crimea is still a big thing. Anyway, another big thing that happened was the FDA approved Narcan for over-the-counter sales. So this is Saturn sort of, again, pushing Mars, right? Saturn overcoming right? Because what this drug does, Narcan, is it stops a drug overdose. right? So you're having a drug overdose and your body stops breathing at one point because of what's going on in your brain, apparently. And what this drug does is stop the effects of the overdose upon your brain and allows you to start breathing again. So, this is a very important drug. It's like Saturn telling this sickness, because sickness is very martial. Mars was originally the planet of sickness. And, regardless of what it was, excuse me, and a drug overdose is a very martial sort of sickness, isn't it? I better speed up here. You see, anyway, so this is for opioids in particular. So Saturn restrained Mars here in a beneficial trine sort of way. Now let's go to the second transit and let's speed it up here, because now this was April 7th. We had we had a lunation. We had a full moon on the 5th. But then on the 7th, we had Mercury perfecting there. I always refer to Mercury as non-binary. Sextile to Mars in Cancer. So Mercury is in the superior position, though. So Mercury is sort of like yelling at Mars. Oh, let me check and see what people are saying really quick in the chat. You said be careful with knives and getting cut. Yeah, I did say that. Oh, yeah, Mars rules blood too. So that's an interesting thing for phlebotomy, Courtney. Mars rules the blood. Hi, Aubrey. How are you? How are you, sweetheart? Is anyone here? It says 2 viewers, but there are more people here, aren't there? Your niece is the Sagittarius Pluto, and you love watching her fight injustice. Yeah, you know. And those of us who are like, Pluto and Libra and Pluto and Scorpio, we need to provide guidance, because we didn't fill the role that they're going to fill. The Pluto and Sagittarius generation every time causes hell, you know? I mean, the last one was Robespierre, and the time before that was Martin Luther, right? So you're great, how am I? Well, I wish there were more people here, because this is important stuff. And then we're going to look at your charts. So, but I'm fine. I'm starting to get sick. I'm starting to come down with something. My daughter was sick, and now like my throat is starting to get sore, and I'm starting to get stuffy, So, so. I'll show you another good game that I know. It's Cat in the Hat. The sun did not shine, it was too wet to play, so we sat in the house all that cold, cold, wet day. I sat there with Sally, I sat there we two, and I said how I wish we had something to do. Too wet to go out and too cold to play ball, so we sat in the house and did nothing at all. So all we could do was to sit, and we did not like it, not one little bit. And then something went bump, and that bump made us jump. We looked and we saw him step in on the mat. We looked and we saw him, the cat in the hat. And then he said to us, why do you sit there like that? Anyway, I'm not going to stick on that. I used to read all that stuff to my daughter. Oh, way, oh, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah, yeah. So with this, some themes I thought of. Like I just said, Mercury in the superior position is like barking at Mars, like, "Yo, dude, stop it!" I mean, it's a sextile, so, but it results in important things. Mars is like Mercury's calling Mars out. So some examples from the past were, July 2022. There was a lot of conflict around abortion access. All these states, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, they started having these trigger laws and all these sorts of things, and outlawing abortion, or almost outlawing abortion. So there were protests nationwide. People did not like this. Even conservatives didn't like this. Everyone has sex. Everyone has, unplanned things that they'd like to that they'd like to not have, right? And the whole thing is about reproductive freedom, because what happens to women when they're forced to have children that they're not prepared to have? Oh, that's so good. That's my salt water. It can cause terrible problems for that child. You know, um, mothers or single parents or whoever can have very difficult times making ends meet. We don't necessarily have paid leave. A lot of single parents are in the service industries. So anyway, conflicts over abortion. So there were lots of protests. December of 2014, I picked this one because there were massive protests after an indictment wasn't brought against the police officers who ended the life of Eric Garner using a chokehold. I mean, that's terrible. Basically suffocating him. That's when they first used, well, not first, I don't know, but they were using the slogan here, "I can't breathe," when they were doing their protests, which you might recognize from George Floyd later. So now, also in 2016, when this transit happened, everyone protested the victory of Donald Trump. I mean, not everyone, but the world by and large was protesting. But what's happening now, or what just happened? Well, we just saw a load of protests in major cities across the nation for gun control. There was one down the street from me. I'm just not too far from Denver. So, and there were loads of kids who organized this themselves. I just thought this was so amazing. And this is the generation coming up. They're the ones who suffer from this. And can you imagine old people telling them, like, "Oh, you're naive"? They're naive. You're naive. You think it's... I just listened to Charlie Kirk. If you're not aware of who he is, I think he's the head of CPAC, or one of them, which is the Conservative Political Action Conference or whatever. He's big with CPAC, but he's a conservative commentator. And he said, basically, you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet, that you have to let a certain amount of children be harmed in order to have the Second Amendment, and that he was prepared for that. I think that is absolutely disgusting. Ooh. It's absolutely disgusting. But it's very indicative of the kind of stuff that happens under Jupiter conjunct the Sun, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Which is a lot of bloviating. To blave. Anyway, for anyone who knows The Princess Bride, to blave, which means to bluff. So that means he was playing cards and he cheated. That's Billy Crystal. So anyway, Mars was separating from the trine here with Mercury and applying to this, separating from the trine with Saturn and applying to the sextile with Mercury. You see? So that's quite interesting. So the other things that happened, right? We talked about the Tennessee lawmakers. They participated in the protests and they're up for expulsion. But interestingly enough, we'll get to that in just a second. The Budweiser BS, right? So Budweiser was blasted for teaming up with trans content creator Dylan Mulvaney, right? And it's like, it was just made such a big deal. Kid Rock was on a video shooting with his automatic assault rifle. Like, it was obviously automatic. And he shot up a case of Budweiser. Like, yo, bro, you bought that still. You still gave your money to them. But, like, what a little, wormy little thing to do. Like, shoot a whole case of beer. What'd you accomplish? Big man, yeah. I can shoot stuff. Wow. And so all these doofuses were taking pictures of themselves shooting Budweiser or pouring Budweiser down the sink. It's like, yo, Dylan Mulvaney got a can, like, to her. It was sent to her as a promotional thing. And guess what? These companies don't care about us. They don't care about queer people. They care about money. Like, they're following. This is the way society's going. Unfortunately for you. So, I saw a lot of commentators saying Bud Light's so stupid. Dude, they're $1 billion company. You don't think they did market research and revenue projections based on all that drove their decision? Like, you have to be completely stupid. You know, Budweiser didn't make a mistake. You're on the wrong side of history, homie. I'm sorry. You're in the minority. So anyway, we'll get to more of that stuff, but it's hilarious. First they freaked out about chocolate, now it's over Budweiser. And M&Ms, like, oh, get over it. Get over it. That's the Eagles. Get over it. All this bitching, whining, pitching a fit. Get over it. Get over it. Anyway, and then what came out? Oh, Clarence Thomas. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. See, we see things like, when I read the themes here. Oh yeah, themes for this transit. Leaks. Things come out. Protests and allegations. So we've seen protests. Now let's see some allegations and some leaks. So Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice, super conservative Supreme Court Justice, who's been instrumental in some really nasty decisions that really just hurt people's rights. Clarence Thomas was found out after an expose to have accepted millions of dollars worth of lavish vacations from a billionaire Republican donor, a guy by the name of Harlan Crow. Now, this guy, Harlan Crow, it just came out, I think today or yesterday, that he's got Nazi memorabilia, or I don't know if I could say that word. He's got, come on, I can't say Nazi. Can I say Nazi? Anyway, memorabilia all over his mansion. He has a signed copy of Mein Kampf, signed by Hitler. He's got paintings by Hitler, of course, hanging around. He's even got linens with swastikas all over him. So, this guy's politics is pretty obvious here. And this is why he's supporting certain causes. So, now, Clarence Thomas comes out defending it, but, AOC was calling for his impeachment. And quite frankly, I think he should be impeached. But all this stuff is technically legal for Supreme Court justices because they get this privilege and everyone assumes they're beyond reproach, which is a bunch of nonsense. They're actual people. They're not robots. So who you can program to be unbiased. I just run programs. Now, what else happened? There was a big leak of military documents from the Department of Defense. They were month-old documents about how the war in Ukraine was progressing. But it was still information that shouldn't have been leaked, and it's probably going to be a problem. The U.S. started blaming Russia for the leak, but there's no real proof of that. They just started assuming based on circumstantial stuff like, the body counts had been decreased and stuff like that for the Russian side. But we don't know, and there's a criminal investigation going on as to, who's responsible for the leak. But it's very indicative, right? Leaks and things like that, of things coming to light with Mercury, with the sextile to Mars. Now, the next one I want to talk about was Venus making the sextile to Neptune, right? And this is the same day. So you'll notice that Venus here is perfecting her sextile to Neptune, which means she's approaching that sextile place. And you might remember I called this hope. And I mentioned that Senator Raphael Warnock had been elected under this, the senator from Georgia now. And he's a reverend, very Neptunian and very Piscean. And he gave his victory speech talking about, hope and prayer and faith and action. That voting was faith and action in putting your values, into action. He said, a vote is a kind of prayer for the world we desire for ourselves and our children. So, that's very indicative of that sort of thing. And then Barack Obama was elected under this transit. And this transit was starting to, Venus was applying to the sextile with Neptune when Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech in 1963. So, yeah, I'm wearing shorts today. It was so warm out. Now, what's happening now? Well, we've seen young people all over the country, right? Now, I talked about the protesting being uh, indicative of the Mars Mercury thing, but the martial part of it to me has more to do with the violence. The Neptune Venus thing is about sexuality and gender to me, right? And young people have been protesting anti-LGBT anti-LGBTQ legislation all over the country. In fact, um, they had passed a bill in Minnesota to make the state a sanctuary for trans people, or a refuge, they were calling it, for gender affirming care, I believe. So, Wisconsin, right, elected a judge, Janet Protasiewicz, to their Supreme Court, which is a big deal, even though it's their state Supreme Court. It flips the court after 15 years of a conservative majority, and her win gives the court the votes it needs to restore abortion rights in Wisconsin. I have family in Wisconsin that are who are very conservative, and they're probably pissed about that. And right away, they started fighting back, like, "Oh, we're going to impeach her." They're just so rotten. You know, Ugh. Can you imagine if the other side did that to them? Like, impeach him. Woo. They'd freak out. Like, oh, you're trying to control the election. Anyway, you know what? Like, there's always a low hum in this. I don't know how to stop it. I don't know. I guess I need to use headphones, maybe. There's always this low hum. Maybe I need to start using headphones on this. Anyway, I should probably get some earbuds. Maybe that'll get rid of the ho hum, the low hum, the ho hum, the background hum. Oh, and the Biden administration proposed new Title IX regulations to make it illegal to ban transgender athletes from participating in sports, right, or sports teams that align with their gender identity. So that's quite interesting. But right, the ban allows for all these exceptions, or sorry, the proposed regulation does offer lots of exceptions. So states can still, de facto ban particular athletes for particular things, but they could cite whatever they want. You see, but Marjorie Taylor Greene freaked out. Of course, she's been freaking out this whole time. And she's also freaking out about a proposed trans Bill of Rights, which was proposed by a Washington Democrat in response to all the conservative attacks on trans people. So basically, this would codify our protected status in Title IX. There's already been court cases about, transgender employment, making sure that we're protected. Oh, and this is a bad one too. Oh, well, we'll get to that one in a little bit, but there was another abortion one. So this had to do with a couple of judges issuing conflicting things. But we'll get to this in a little bit. So I want to go backwards and forwards. So let's look at another thing here. What's happening? What's happening? Oh, I had these articles up too. Like I was gonna look at them and stuff, but it's probably the astrology more interesting. Like there's Clarence Thomas. Mega donor. I'm sorry, but like the stuff that comes out, I tell you, it's like we're in an age of revealing here. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. And we'll see with the Pluto Venus stuff that even more stuff comes out. So anyway, oh god, I don't know why I think that's so funny. But now Venus enters Gemini today, which is a big deal. But we're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to talk about these other aspected transits here. But Venus entering Gemini, right? Anytime Venus changes signs, you want to beware of which house, whole sign house, Venus is entering for you, because you want to see if those house significations are activated. So it's my fifth house. Let's see if I get quite randy tonight, because Venus enters Gemini about 10 p.m. my time, which means for you Eastern folks, it's about midnight, right? And for you Pacific folks, my California dreaming, or what's the other one? California knows how to party. California. Anyway, for you all, it will be 8 p.m. 8 p.m. So let's see if I get extra randy later tonight or tomorrow. Am I gonna be like Old Faithful? Excuse me. She moves her body like a cannonball. Very well, all her need. Anyway, Saturn conjunct Jupiter in Aries. So this actually perfects tomorrow. But we've already been seeing some funny stuff. And what comes to mind as major themes are inflated egos, shameless pomp, right? Inflating ourselves, right? Overreaching authority, exaggeration, and overrulings, right? Like whoever saw My Cousin Vinny, right? Remember the judge and Joe Pesci's like, you know, Judge, I object because of da 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 da. And the judge goes, Mr. Gambini, that was a very well thought out, well reasoned, and well delivered objection. Thank you, Judge. Overruled. Right? So overruled, right? So one judge stamping down. So one of the first events I noticed with this was, late September, early October of 2016. That's when we had the Clinton Trump debates. Of course, there was a lot of pomp, right? It's like these two overly inflated egos, both of them. And it was so funny to watch. You know, uh, Clinton had the emails, right? Or whatever, the emails that in the email server thing, and released the emails. And some of them, did indicate they were. Anyway, we don't need to get into all that. But, and then for Trump, it was about the tax returns. Release your tax returns. Release your tax returns. And he kept saying, I'll release my tax returns when she releases the emails. Right? Um, and it was just so funny to watch because he really steamrolled her in a lot of ways. And I gotta, well, neither planet's in the superior position, but it's just interesting. You think of the Jupiter Sun thing and it just blows itself up. It was in Libra and he's a Leo rising. So if he's Leo rising, Libra is third house of communication. So, he had Sun conjunct Jupiter in his third house and he was just bop, bop, bop. I'm not condoning him. I'm not supporting him in any which way, but it's like any candidate, right? So I'm really hoping my mama, Marianne Williamson, can, can hold her own. If she ever got the nomination, which is, you got a snowball's chance in hell. But that's okay. I can still hope. So anyway, Hillary's popularity was overinflated because Trump won, right? So now October of 2017, early October, this is where Trump overreaches power. So, he said, well, he's lying essentially. He tells the CDC to declare a national opioid emergency, but then doesn't follow through. He instead issues a directive, but with no funding. With no funding, you can't do anything. So it's a fake policy, right? It's a balloon. You just blew it up with nonsense, with nothing, right? How about 2018? So this was wild because I was involved in this. I was protesting with local orgs and part of some planning committees with local orgs for the refugee crisis. We had refugees from South America, you know, leaving all kinds of conditions that happened down there, a lot of which were derivative of U.S. actions down there, you know, starting with NAFTA and CAFTA and all that sort of thing, and sort of decimating their economies and supporting right-wing movements. Like in El Salvador, there were these right-wing death squads, you know, that were doing horrible things. In many countries, there were these sorts of things. So we had all these refugees coming up towards the United States border, and in response, Trump authorized, he deployed U.S. troops there. I think it was just National Guard, but still, you know, and he ordered them or authorized them to use lethal force against refugees. Now, one of these events, well, they shut down the border, right? I was part of a march that went down there to San Isidro. I used to live in San Diego, and they shut down the border. We're firing tear gas at the refugees. One young girl was hurt. There were reports in the beginning that she was unlived, right? But it turned out that she was just unconscious. But still, this is wild. They're firing rubber bullets and tear gas at refugees. So it was just a terrible, disgusting time. Now, that's sort of an overreach, isn't it? Deploying these people, you know, gosh, like what? Ordering violent retaliation? I mean, isn't that against the Geneva Convention or something like that? Anyway, and then another overreach, Trump calls for the arrest of his Deputy Attorney General, Robert Mueller. And then Michael Cohen, his former lawyer and fix-it man, pled guilty to lying to Congress, you know, in these Mueller investigation things. And then the next year, in 2019, when this transit was going on, the Trump impeachment trial began. Now, this can sort of be Democrats overinflating the charges, which had something to do with, you know, withholding military aid to Ukraine in exchange for, you know, to try and blackmail them in a way or extort them into releasing damaging information on Biden, right, to affect the election, essentially. Now, that whole thing fell through. So, as we know, but what happened now? Well, the Tennessee lawmakers, right, were overreaching to expel these three Democrats who supported, right, gun control and who helped protest with their constituents against gun violence. But this is what I was alluding to earlier. That could also be part of the last transit having to do with Venus and Neptune, but also Venus entering Gemini, right? The Nashville Council voted to reinstate Justin Jones, and they're going to vote on the other reinstatement as well. So now he could be reappointed to his seat temporarily until a special election would be held, and he could win back his own seat. How stupid. But still, that's pretty cool. Of course, we have the Trump indictment happening right now. It's inflating his popularity a little bit. But the one thing I think of with this whole, you know, Jupiter conjunct Sun thing is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's such an overinflated idiot. And really, she's an evil person because she's inciting violence. So she just had, and I think I was going to play a little clip here. Or I don't know if I can. It's from 60 Minutes. But she was on 60 Minutes. And she straight up, I think this was.
Across something, and this was at the end of 2017, called QAnon. I was allowed to believe things that weren't true. And that is absolutely what I regret.
Well, I apologize to my colleagues. I think apologies are important.
Okay, did you ever apologize to Nancy Pelosi about the bullet to her head?
I didn't say that, so I don't need to apologize for
Well,
words that weren't
didn't
mine.
you like it?
Other people also ran my social media. I don't think I did that.
Are you saying that you don't your position on Parkland, Florida?
What was my position on Parkland, Florida?
That it was a false
I don't know if you
flag?
actually have my position. No.
Anyway, like there was another clip I can't really play, but I think a lot of people have seen it, where she straight up calls Democrats the P word, what we'll call PDF files, PDF files, PDF files, right? I'm talking about Adobe PDF file. You understand the euphemism I'm using? I heard that the other day because I don't know if I can say that and not get in trouble on YouTube. But she basically said all Democrats are, abusers. And Leslie Stahl, who did a terrible interview, it was really bad. She just enabled MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said, but the Democrats are not PDF files. And Marjorie Taylor Greene says, well, yeah, they support surgery for children. Or they said, they use the S word, right? Gosh, I have to be careful about all the words I use on YouTube. But essentially, they accused all Democrats of, putting children in a bad context. And it's like, yo, dude, you're the one doing that. This has nothing to do with that. So anyway, it was just a really alarming and wacky thing. So that's one evidential part of this. Her bloviating, and then she, of course, was outside this rally in New York and just spewing all kinds of nonsense. And she's also been spewing a lot of hatred about trans people. So, someone who's overinflating themselves with a bunch of nonsense seems quite interesting. Because, the sun is hot and dry. And Jupiter, comes in and just blows it up. Now, Jupiter's hot and wet, but adding to the heat, now this last one I wanted to talk about before we get to your charts. This is Venus in Gemini trine Pluto in Aquarius. And this perfects tomorrow, right? But we've already been seeing some stuff correlate with it. So a couple of past events we talked about some themes rather, were sexual misconduct, exposed or punished. I don't know if I should have said that word. But bad things to do with sex, exposed or punished. Control over women's bodies and abortion rights, things to do with that. Now, typically with the trine, we're seeing some sort of resolution or things being brought to light. Now, a good example of this was October of 2017. This perfected on the 3rd, and on the 5th, the New York Times published an article detailing all the allegations against Harvey Weinstein. All of his abuse allegations. And a month before, it's so funny. This is just a weird coincidence, I guess, but a month before Harvey Weinstein's expose, in September, Hurricane Harvey hit Texas. Hurricane Harvey hit Texas, and then Harvey Weinstein the next month. I just think that's interesting, don't you? Then late July of 2018, Pennsylvania's Attorney General, well, no, this wasn't, July was when it perfected, but then in August, Pennsylvania's Attorney General announced a child abuse scandal going back 70 years with Catholic priests, where children were silenced, but it was outed, right? Just following this transit, which is quite interesting. Oh, and then, June of 2019, this is when it perfected, but just after that, a month after, I know Venus had already left and got into the next sign, but it's quite interesting that Epstein was arrested just a month after the perfection. So what's interesting about this sometimes is events are sort of seen as precipitating after the transit, but it definitely seems characteristic of the Pluto-Venus thing. And then late March of 2020, a woman named Tara Reid alleges that Biden SA'd her in 1993. So that's another, whether or not it actually happened. I mean, the allegations are sort of indicative of the transit. And then in June of last year, Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison for her part in the Epstein S-word trafficking and abuse. But what's happening now? Well, there's an abortion trafficking law that was just passed in Idaho. Basically criminalizes anyone who helps someone cross state lines to get an abortion. So if you go to another state to get an abortion and someone helps you, that person can face 2 to 5 years in prison. I mean, that's crazy. This is getting wackadoodle. So, but on Friday, as we're getting close to this transit, first I was going to tell you about a Texas judge, a Trump-appointed judge. A Trump-appointed judge ordered a nationwide injunction, right, on you, basically banning the abortion pill mifepristone. It's a new abortion drug. And a Washington judge ordered the FDA not to change any availability. So that's the thing I thought was sort of cool. That's more of the Pluto trine Venus thing, right? That this judge is like, no, we're going to keep this available. And it's sort of indicative a little bit of the Sun conjunct Jupiter because it was overruled, right? One judge got both rulings are sort of standing, but it's quite interesting here. And then Iran's hijab law. So the reason I mentioned this, and I should have mentioned more international events because we've had all this stuff going on in Israel, which is really wacky. Like over 100 Palestinians have been murdered so far this year, since the beginning of January by Israeli forces and settlers. So it's a really dire situation. Even the United States is telling them to chill out, which never happens. So, and massive protests are happening all over Israel because, Benjamin Netanyahu, the ultra-conservative Israeli prime minister, or president, I can't remember if he's prime minister or president, but he brought in an ultra-right-wing conservative coalition, and they basically started forcing, these are people who believe in apartheid, essentially. Anyway, I could probably get people coming after me for that. But it's very important to mention it because it's a really dire situation. And Israeli people are sort of standing up too. Because basically they would have taken over the lawmaking process, is my understanding. And they wouldn't have to get approval. I guess they wouldn't have to get approval from the legislature or something else. Anyway, that's a really important thing too, because those are overreaches of power. So we talked about that. Oh, the Iran hijab law. So I mentioned that because, Iranian police forces said they were going to start, the morality police said they were going to start using surveillance equipment, like surveillance technology, to identify women who weren't wearing their hijab as, mandated by the state. But women are sort of like F you, and more women are leaving their houses without head coverings or hijabs, right? Any sort of head covering. And this is becoming a problem for the Iranian regime, which, we'll see how this progresses and unfolds over the coming years. But, sort of like Jurassic Park, life finds a way. What's so funny about Jurassic Park is they're sort of promoting transgenderism with, the dinosaurs changing sex back and forth. I just think it's funny. And another really wacky one is the Dalai Lama just apologized for kissing a young boy in India and asking him to suck on his tongue. It was caught on video and the video went viral. So, but as soon as this got into orb, he issued his apology, which it's not a resolution, but it's an attempt at one, you know. So anyway, that's the last transit I wanted to talk about because these perfect tomorrow. And then we'll be able to talk about those later. And then we'll do, the astrology of May coming up. Maybe we'll just revisit all these transits again when we do the astrology of May. I was hoping maybe I could talk about, maybe I should talk about houses tomorrow. Houses or aspects. Or maybe I should talk about the moon. It's the moon. The moon rule. Wait, where's the chat? Here's the chat. You saw that. What? What'd you see? You believe in that snowball. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Tiffany. You're washing dishes. Yay. Priestess. Nobody. My brain remembering the Princess Bride. As you wish. Yeah. Never challenge a Sicilian when death is on the line. I love Andre the Giant. He seemed like such a, well, I don't know him personally, but he's I mean, all these famous men ended up being not nice to women, right? But he seemed like a big sweet guy, I guess. And I love Carrie Elwes, oh gosh, Carrie Elwes. As you wish. To blave. What other good lines from that movie do I typically say? I love that line at the end where he talks about, taking off his ears or his eyes and whatever, cutting Humperdinck apart, but leaving his ears so he can hear the children scream, "Dear God, what is that thing?" Anyway. The Gemini is your Venus's natal home. Well, so this will be fun for you. What house is that? Oh, we have some charts up here. Who's still here? Is Just Amber still here? We can look at some of your stuff. Just Amber. Is Just Amber here? Just Amber. It takes a while for the chat to update, so I don't know why it takes so long. So long. It says there's 5 viewers, but it seems like there's more than 5 people here. Oh, well. It's so wackadoodle. I swear to God there were more people here. Well, who wants their chart done? You got to speak up because I have to know you're here. I have to know you're here. Just Amber. I'll start looking at Just Amber. Just Amber. Solar Fire. Solar Fire. Better. Solar Fire's never over. Amber. Amber. Well, I don't know. Are you still here, Amber? Is this worth doing? Is this worth doing? 11:03 a.m. Fort Thomas, Kentucky. Amber, Amber, are you here? Aubrey, Aubrey. Marriage, marriage is what brings us together today. If you're here, just speak up. I see Aubrey, I see Priestess Shakti. I think I see Elizabeth. I think I see Lizzie, Tiffany. You can work out and listen, yeah, but I want someone's chart to look at. Otherwise, I'll just start talking about transits. I have Amber. I don't want to do it if she's not here. Because someone else. Lizzie. You're a Pluto person. Well, we could do synastry too. Yeah, Lizzie. Lizzie, Lizzie. Lizzie, Lizzie. I don't know why I keep saying that because I don't think you are a lesbian. Lizzie, Lizzie. Sorry. Sorry, sorry. Thin Lizzy, also, the band. Ugh. Oops. Elizabeth says, be right back. Of course. I just want to know who's here for reading charts. You know? Like, if you go, you go. It's recorded. Of course. If you go, it's fine. But, 1983, same as me. Wait. Oh, wait, no, he's 1983. Tustin. Oh, excuse me. Partner or interest? Oh, okay. Ilva and Aubrey. Yeah, Aubrey, if you want to put your stuff here. Yeah, I'm really proud of what the young people are doing now. You know, especially the Pluto and Sag generation. 717 83. He was born the same year I was. 11 p.m. DC. How do I do this again? District of Columbia, USA. I gotta figure out how to do this. It's always so weird. No, cancel. What is it, Maryland or Virginia? DC. How do we do DC? I hate when this happens. Like, I know how to do it on my other app, but I don't know how to do it on here. Place. DC. District of Columbia. Yemen? Oh my god. Are you kidding me here? Wait, who's Denison, Texas, Lizzie? Didn't you say Tustin, California? Oh, Denison, Texas. Wait, why does it say DC? What the hell is DC? Anyway. Well, I still want to figure out how to do DC, but okay, I see Denison, Texas. But what's DC mean then? Denison, Texas. DC. Anyway, let's see a little bit about Lizzie. Oh, his initials. Oh, oops. I get things. See, I'm a ditz. Sorry. I'm Mercury in Taurus. So first of all, you have Mars square your ascendant. And Mars is the rule. I have the same thing. You know, Saturn's my ascendant ruler, and he squares my ascendant too. It's a pain in the butt. But for me, it's, chronic illness. For you, it's probably chronic accidents or being accident prone or having these I hope you haven't been through car accidents. Um, but you probably have a bit of aggression. I bet mom was a bit aggressive too. Mom was probably a difficult person. Probably all over the place, you know. when we do synastry and stuff, I mean, when I look at people's natal charts first, I'll look at predominant aspects, you know, like who's aspecting the most. Oh, and I look for dignity, right? So who's the ascendant ruler? Mars. He's up there in the 10th and he's retrograde. So he's sort of powerful being close to an angle, but he's retrograde, which slows him down quite a bit. He's not in a bad sign. He doesn't rule Leo. He doesn't do anything, he's fine. Excuse me. But then we look to the condition of the sun who rules the 10th house, right? The sun is exalted in Aries, which is very good, but he's in the 6th house. So this can mean a couple different things. It could be someone who's in the medical profession, someone who's a healer of some sort, someone who's got good clientele, but it can also be someone who's a manager, who manages staff, right? Who has to take care of staff, or it's someone who's in the service industry in general. So, I mean, there's other ways it could go, but there's reception by sign between the sun and Mars, so they're supporting each other. Even though Mars is retrograde, they're still supporting each other. So that's really interesting. Saturn in the 11th house, so you're wounded around friends and relationships. Left out as a kid, made to feel weird and isolated perhaps. Can't sit here, seats taken. Or like the last kid picked for dodgeball, I always say. Mercury's not happy. Mercury's not happy. Mercury rules your 8th house. And Mercury rules your 11th house. Did you ever have a miscarriage? Oh, kid bedtime, of course. And then I'll answer you in a little bit. You're up on deck too. You're up on deck too. Aubrey and Elizabeth and Ilva. Don't turn down a good box. You can sing your song. I love box. I mean, does that make any sense? Well, let's move on. Oh, the 7th house. Oh, well, I hope you haven't had some difficult stuff with children, like a miscarriage or something like that. Jupiter rules the 5th house, though, and is not happy and retrograde in the 11th. So I wonder about your issues with children and childbirth, because it looks difficult and unhappy in some way. Self-isolated, difficult pregnancies had to terminate. Yeah, it doesn't look good. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. That's really tough. I always used to dream about getting pregnant when I was a kid, And then as I got older, I'm like, it's a terrible idea. That shit hurts, But I'm so sorry. I mean, we'll see stuff like that. And the reason because oftentimes the most dire reading of that is like the death of a child. So miscarriages are a frequent thing. Because the mortality rate is better these days, But yeah, that's unhappy. Anyway, so the child thing isn't happy. And then Venus in the 8th house, probably someone who likes bad boys. Someone who's attracted to the wrong kind of guy, or criminals, right? Attracted to like Bender from the Breakfast Club, Like, sup, sporto? 2 children, C-sections, NICU babies. Fine now. Good. Yeah, I mean, so that's probably what that was. So that's probably what that was. Was the NICU stuff. For those of you who don't know, that's natal intensive care unit, which is very scary when your babies go to NICU. That's scary. Like, you can't see them, and I mean, they're behind a glass case or whatever. It feels like they're separated from you. It's very tough. So anyway, you could hear I'm getting stuffed up and hoarse, and we got to get to other people. Okay, I'm going to speed up. So yes, bad boys. Yeah, that's very characteristic. So how about money? I always got to look at it. Money's probably not good. I'm sorry. Like, ruled by Jupiter, but unhappy Jupiter in retrograde. So any good stuff with money would happen later. Venus is overcoming by superior square to Jupiter. And Venus rules your seventh house and your 12th. But still, Venus could help the money situation a little bit, you know? And you have a night chart, which makes Venus your best planet. Okay, so let's look at this misfit here. Who is this doofus? I'm kidding, I'm kidding. COVID NICU twins. Oh my goodness, baby. I'm so sorry. Okay. Well, this ruffian has a very well dignified first house ruler. Goodness gracious. What a big deal. Big man on campus. Yeah. Look at that. And retrograde. So, I mean, it's like he's just starting to come into his own now, right? Probably now as he's gotten a bit older. So he's turning 40 this year, as am I. And his North Node's in the fourth house. So maybe he's learning to be a family person or a father or something like that. Maybe he had kids recently and you know, he's got to shape up because he's used to being a fifth house Mars. It's fifth house Mars in fall in Cancer, right? So, I mean, he's got Mars and the sun like I do, but mine are in Gemini. They're not in fall, right? So it makes me sort of like, you know, super libido and like recharging quick here, but it doesn't cause problems to people. Like, I don't go out and, you know, I don't typically cheat on people. I don't typically, do anything wackadoodle. But see, with Mars in fall, that might be a history of infidelity. But he definitely has a big sex drive, you know? Definitely big sex drive. Definitely. Um, 10th house ruler is Jupiter in the 10th house. Yeah. So there's something either successful or prominent about him, but it happens later in life. Maybe he starts a business because Mars in the 5th house can be small business people. Mars rules the 9th house and Mars rules the 2nd house. 2nd house ruler in the 5th. So, you know, maybe this guy is a gambler, or maybe he's like a stock person, day trader, someone who takes money risks, perhaps, or plays money games. Maybe they're an athlete. Small business people. Small businesses are risks. Um, you'll see actors, actresses with this sort of stuff, or people who produce adult content. I mean, mine is my 10th house ruler and my 5th, but similar in a way because the 2nd house is our livelihood. So, anyway, his 7th house ruler, oh, he's got Venus unhappy in the 7th house. And Venus rules his 8th. So I wonder if he had the death of a partner at some point. That's the worst case scenario. It could be estrangement from relationships or a partner. He definitely wants a partnership, though. Scorpio moon, I mean, that's a tough deal right there. Tough deal. Tough deal. Let's see. Oops. No, I don't want to do that. Do we got. Oh, wait, here we go. Wait, this was Lizzie. Lizzie's got some good Pluto stuff. Pluto square the sun. So that's like being shattered periodically. You know, you're creepy too. Well, and Saturn square your sun. So nothing comes easy to you. You know, life is hard. You keep getting challenged on. You have to cultivate discipline. And you probably have a tendency to go to excess with things because of Venus square Jupiter. Who's really prominent here? No one's like really, I guess, no one's really taking the cake necessarily. Let's look at this person's stuff. Um, oh, they have Pluto conjunct this. Oh, that's, I'm looking at them, not you. So they have Pluto square the sun. That's all that. He's been on a long time out from relationships. Yeah. Moon trine Mars. Moon. Saturn. I don't know. I mean, fourth house ruler in the sixth house. Dad was either a workaholic or had chronic illness, maybe, was never around because they were so busy, or again, chronic illness, or maybe they were just a jerk, an enemy. Chiron in the fourth house, so unstable home life, probably issues with dad. What's Mercury doing? Is Mercury aspecting, well, Jupiter? Anyway, so probably difficult home life. Yes, on my shattered. What's your stuff, Thin Lizzy? What's your stuff? Thin Lizzy. Oh, we talked about wacky mom. Oh, you have Sun opposite or opposite Pluto. So very similar, but yours is worse. Yours is harder than his. So yeah, you got to watch out for looking at people through rose-colored glasses too. You know, you got that tendency to sort of fool yourself. Love me, say that you love me, fool me, I'm gonna fool myself. Do you need to worry about Pluto stuff with this dude? Well, let's look at the synastry. The synastry grid. Oops. Lizzie interest. So, well, let's look at the bad stuff. Well, your Pluto square his sun. So you're a bit obsessed about him. You're thinking about him. His Pluto is sextile your Mars, which is kind of hot. Uranus opposite Venus. That can be kink or it can be an illicit affair. Your Uranus trine his sun. That's not bad. Things could get started very quickly if they get started. Oh, I hate having a hiatal hernia. It's like stuff gets stuck in my chest. You're lighting up his Jupiter. Kind of. I mean, your moon conjunct his Jupiter, or his Jupiter conjunct your moon, I guess. Jupiter opposite Venus. Like that's sort of egging each other on to go further than you should. It's not necessarily bad, but you know, getting each other to spend more money than you should, or have another drink when you shouldn't. Jupiter square Mars. The Jupiter person can sort of seem conceited and upset the Mars person, and this is you here. You would love if you could do you and your prospect. Yeah, let me hurry up. So the Venus trine Mars thing. Again, watch out for ignoring red flags. I know it's a trine, which is lovely, like sharing passions and things like that, but just watch out for ignoring things you shouldn't ignore. Some nice Saturn stuff. That's good. Right? Nice Saturn stuff both ways. I don't look at these minor aspects. They're useless to me. It's a bunch of TMI. If you love quincunxes and noviles and septiles and semi-squares and semi-sextiles and sesquiquadrates and, you know, butt-ass shitdom, I don't know. To me, it's a bunch of I mean, people use them. Like Robert Hand said, when do minor aspects matter? It's when they're super tight. But for me, it's a waste of time. Is Mars, any Venus stuff? Venus square Venus, that can be a little bit of having different aesthetics. There's something that just doesn't jive a lot of times with that. Ooh, Venus conjunct your Jupiter. That's a big deal. You know, that's definitely auspicious. But it's not necessarily sexual or anything. I don't even look at quintiles, Elizabeth. You know, I used to do all that. I did it for years. You know, because you can trace a pentagram with quintiles and biquintiles. You know, a quintile is 72 degrees, a fifth, right? And a biquintile is 144. Yeah, so a fifth is a fifth. But the idea behind quintiles that I was raised in was that you're perfecting something. or that you have perfect. It's something that you've accomplished over lives. I don't know if I believe in that anymore, and I don't really have use for minor aspects, but you can use them and find wonderful stuff, I'm sure. You know? So anyway, um I'm not dissing anyone who uses them. To me, there's enough to look at. Venus, Jupiter opposite your Venus, we talked about. But see, none of this stuff is explicitly sexual, really. Mars square Jupiter, we talked about that. I mean, I don't know. I don't. Oh, his sun trine your ascendant. Oh, when your Mercury conjunct his ascendant. So that's, I mean, these things are very, very close, right? And his Jupiter conjunct your ascendant. So you see, that's a loving connection or attraction. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I mean, if you get together, it means something. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll get together. Anyway, um, here we are. I should get to someone else. I really should get to someone else. It's just sort of interesting to me. Anyway, let's go on to the next person. Yeah, but I mean, see how it goes. Venus square Venus can be a lot of sexual games too, like egging each other on in a good way. Like texting each other dirty things or like challenging each other competition wise in some ways. Like, oh, I'm going to get you, or I'm going to mess you up, or I'm going to do this to you in a playful sort of way. But the unfortunate side is when you start nitpicking about each other's appearance or aesthetic or what you like or music. You're like, oh, you like that music? It's so stupid. Like I had a partner whose Venus was square my ascendant, or maybe my Venus. I can't remember if mine was square hers or her square mine. And it's just like, oh my God. Like I tried to like her music. She hated mine. Like she hated metal. And well, yeah, I like those kind of games, but where it gets difficult, and just be where any of these can work in a relationship, it takes consciousness and awareness. So, but yeah, just watch out about the aesthetic thing. It could be music, it could be cars, it could be clothes, it could be this or that or whatever. The yard, or I don't know if you own a house together. It's like I don't like that decoration. That sort of stuff. Who are you? Aubrey. 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 Hopefully you're still here, Aubrey, but this will be recorded. This will be recorded. 1980. You're around me too. We're both old. I mean, we're not old. We're still young. We're young. 40s are young. Mother. I swear to God. Solar fire. You're going to make my Mars combust come out. Solar fire. Where? Now I lost Aubrey. Aubrey, June 18th. Just barely a Gemini. 4:44 p.m. I can sing my song. Yeah. Well, I was singing. If you ever saw that movie Inside Llewyn Davis, I love the music. It's a really depressing movie, although it is pretty good, but it's quite depressing. But the music is so good. It's like 1950s or 60s like folk music. And he's like a starving, struggling musician. It's God, what's his name? I love that actor too. He's very cute. Gosh, what's his name? Jewish fella. God, what's it's gonna kill me? I know you know what I'm talking about. Very handsome man. Very handsome man. Got those bedroom eyes, you know. Oh gosh. And I love olive skinned people. I don't maybe it's because I'm so white. I'm like almost transparent. I was doing my, you know, my adult stuff earlier, and I was looking at myself and I'm like, wow, you are stark white. Like your whole body. It's all one color, you know? It's just straight up lab rat. That's the color. Scranton, PA. Okay. If I had wings like Norris dove. Aubrey. Aubrey. Scorpio rising. Hopefully you're still here. I know you're putting your kids to bed, but well, you don't have a partner here, so I'm just gonna talk about other stuff. Aubrey didn't put a partner, right? Aubrey didn't put a partner. Okay. Waterloo. Wooloo, Lulu. So Mars conjunct Saturn, first of all, that's quite difficult. In the 11th house, especially. So, you know, probably quarrels with friends and peers growing up. You know, made to feel left out also. Probably like the last person. Like I said, it's like the last person being picked for dodgeball. Being weird, being left out, maybe even bullied, you know. Mars there too suggests bullying. But then Moon conjunct Jupiter. Well, Jupiter's unhappy. And Jupiter rules the fifth house, children, and second house once again. So I wonder if there's been difficulties with money and something to do with children. Um, Seventh house ruler, Venus, in the eighth house. So you probably like bad boys too. Or you're attracted to people you shouldn't be attracted to. People who might be dangerous or, you know. The Sun conjunct Venus, though, you know, it can be quite charming. Venus, though, is what's called under the beams or combust. So she's eclipsed by the light of the sun, right? So that could probably make you socially awkward. Well, and she's retrograde too. She rules the 12th house. Oh, and the sun rules the 10th. Well, first of all, I wonder if you have anything to do with finance or money in some way. Money, money, money. You wish you were as pale as me? Gosh, I don't know. I mean, sometimes it looks nice. I look like Snow White. Like earlier, I was looking at my legs and I'm like, holy cow. I mean, I've been held up like a mushroom all winter. You know, living in the dark and eating bullshit. A mushroom. If I had wings like Norris Joe, I'd fly up the river. So Mars is going through your ninth house right now. Don't get in any political arguments. It can make you quite sort of zealous. You're sort of feeling like, oh, you know. You probably have a tendency right now, like most of us do, to, you know, try and bottle stuff up and not get mad, but that just ends up making us madder, like in having these explosions or this resentment. Gosh, you've had difficult relationships with that Chiron. Had your heart broken. I mean, maybe divorce. Maybe divorce. Have you had a spouse die or pass away ever? Or a partner ever pass away? How about mental illness? Depression. 12th house ruler conjunct the sun. Oh, until I'm stuffy. A god cannonball. Oh, so Neptune opposite Venus. Again, watch out for getting trapped. Watch out for avoiding reality. You know, like you got to face things, especially with that eighth house Venus. You know, there might be issues with hopefully you don't get into debt. Hopefully you don't get into debt. Fear. Conquering fear. What are you afraid of? Fear. Um, Fear. Did you have a difficult experience of religion growing up? Or was your mom religious or parents religious in some way? Fourth house ruler, 11th house. Oh, dad. Dad popular, maybe? Or dad, everyone else? Or maybe the son is dad here. Dad a criminal? Or dad um, was dealing drugs or something? I don't know. But dad doing eighth house things. Things under the surface. Unsavory things, perhaps. Hiding stuff, lies, deception. Anyway, I won't just linger on all that. But timing stuff coming up is interesting because, um, you know, Mars has been going through your ninth house. Oh, like I already just said that. But Venus is entering your eighth house again. So your boyfriend is worried about you watching all my videos. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not that bad. I'm sorry I'm not that bad. I mean, your boyfriend's probably fine. Maybe he'll be my boyfriend. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Or am I? So anyway, Saturn square Venus. That doubly makes you socially awkward. You poor baby. You probably have just a group of close friends. I mean, there's something about you that just feels left out and weird, or perhaps alone or lonely. Or misunderstood. No one understands me. That kind of stuff. But you're probably very sweet. Probably very honest. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. You could spin some yarns with that stuff in the eighth house. That's possibility. But when we see Jupiter conjunct the moon, often these people are quite sweet. Well, sorry. Jupiter's going to enter your seventh house in May. That's what I really wanted to talk about. And so you could, a relationship is going to, lucky things will happen around your relationships. So it sounds like you're with someone, right? Which for the next year, you could see that blossom quite a bit. There could be commitments that you make. Relationship goes to the next level or something like that. You love when I wear pink. I always look stunning. Green is also my color, and you look like a vixen in black. Thank you, priestess. Thank you. Yeah, I almost wore a pink top, but then I just wore the green because, and I wore black for the dirty stuff. So the devil whispered, "You can't withstand the storm." I whispered back, "I love your eggs." I don't know what that means, but that's good. So anyway, the Jupiter thing is really lovely in terms of relationships. It's also a cardinal house, so you could see other areas of your life get supercharged too. If you have any other contractual obligations or contractual partnerships or business partnerships, people who have, I mean, you could see competitors here too, rivals, things like that. Oh, Aubrey, good, you're back. I was just talking about your chart. So, wait. Elizabeth said who said something about their boyfriend? That was Elizabeth. So, Aubrey, if you are with someone, wonderful. If you're not, you could meet someone significant over the next year because Jupiter is going to be in your seventh house. And Jupiter is sort of like, the good daddy type. So that could be a lovely little, and Jupiter will be here for a year, right? So this is a year of luck with relationships. I think we've talked about eclipses before. sixth house. Saturn's going through your fifth house for a while. Just be careful because life is going to feel very uncertain and shaky, you know. And then it's time to pick up the pieces when Saturn goes into your um what the hell is that? Sixth house. And the eclipse is going to be in your sixth house. So you went through the existential crisis, especially since October. And now, right, it's time to sort of go into your cocoon. You know, you could be addressing physical health issues, mental health issues. You need to take time not being involved in lots of stuff or drama so that you can sort of integrate all these changes you went through. Now, Aubrey, I was talking about your chart going back a couple of minutes, so you're going to want to rewatch some of that. Okay? But you do have some lovely stuff going on. When we get to June, right, that means Venus is going through your 10th house. And that's going to increase your visibility. And she's going to add a little bit of sparkle, right, to your step. Because she's going to be here for 4 months, which is very long for Venus. She's going retrograde. Now, yeah, so that's very lovely for good recognition, little promotions or raises, stuff like that, good press, achieving something, getting a project done, bringing something to fruition, right? It could be, or it could be a female boss who you get recognized by. Or it could be a new female boss or a new woman that helps you out in your situation or gives you some good recognition. So, but let's move on to the next person. Who is next? Who's next? Ilva. Was it Ilva? Sorry for yawning like that. I should have covered my mouth. You always do, but you never want to be greedy asking, oh, you're so sweet. I know, I appreciate you. Can you tell you about you and a love interest? That's Lizzie. That's Aubrey. Okay, Ilva. Ilva Edina. Ilva. Ilva Edina. We get moose and squirrel. Yes, Natasha. We get moose and squirrel. I don't know why I'm doing Boris and Natasha. Hort's mouth. Dude, you... I always do that. I hate to be stupid or like mean, but try and put the time after the date because I keep on. It's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault. 8:32 a.m. But I try and be quick about this. So date, time, city. Date, time, city. Sorry, it's my fault. Like I'm just Taurus Mercury. I'm slow. So Ilva, Scorpio rising again. Damn it. We just had a Scorpio rising. So anyway, but you heard a lot of that other stuff. So you're a balsamic moon. Look at that, approaching a new moon. So, and all in the 12th house, you poor baby. So I wonder if, again, the standard thing when I see the sun and the moon in the 12th house, well, what's the moon rule? The moon rules, number one. Moon rules the 9th house and Chiron in the 9th house. So that typically tells me there was a difficult experience of religion growing up. Maybe like Catholic school or, parents being like Pentecostal or, any sort of Christian, Islam or Judaism typically. Any of the Abrahamic religions where everything gets very oppressive. But, we think of mental illness and or addiction, things like that. Things like that. Unhappy relationships in the past. You like to meet people through friends. The problem is that they tend to be nitpicky, probably. Or they tend to be boring. Boring, not fun. Maybe you're not attracted to them. Like, why do you pick these people that might be just boring? I don't know. I don't know. But you like-minded people. You need to find like-minded people. People who share the same type of values as you. Um, Jupiter's very unhappy. Look at that, ruling the second house. You've probably accumulated a good amount of debt or gotten into debt that wasn't very good. You know? And I hope you don't do any self-harm. No self-harm. No self-harm. I mean, we do what we do, and we try our best with life, but so I'm just saying, be nice to yourself. Be nice to yourself. Oh, Greek Orthodox. Yeah, that counts. That's a type of Christian. Wait, Prestonburg? Why did it say Portsmouth? Well, this is you. The other person's Kentucky. Oh, I guess we'll bring, yeah, well, let's put that other person up too. Portsmouth. Oh, August 3rd. Oops. Ilva partner. You can tell I'm a Taurus Mercury because I'm like, I also do Sag Mouth, if anyone's familiar with my Sag Mouth stuff. It's because I absolutely love Sagittarians, especially Sag women. They do the Sag Mouth thing. Where it's so hot to me. I don't know why. It just is. What? Oh, there we go. Floyd, I guess. Hello, Floyd. Yo, Floyd. Okay. I think we looked at your stuff. I mean, Pluto in the first house, Pluto relatively conjunct the ascendant. So that's sort of like, I mean, of course, you get shattered periodically, like the sun thing too. But then it gives us issues with power. You probably have deep set eyes and sort of a dark demeanor and all that fun stuff too. But, we usually feel powerless as children. And then we have this obsession with not letting that happen as we get older. It gives us this dark side of like, wanting revenge all the time. We typically think that we're a benevolent dictator, and we're not. When I was a kid, I have Pluto square the ascendant. They asked us what we wanted to be when we grew up, and I said dictator of the world. So, kind of shows you. Now, 10th house ruler in the 6th and in fall. Do you have anything to do with counseling and stuff like that? Like, do you do counseling? Who's your partner? I don't know. You put two things here, and I assume the first one was you. You didn't label them. It just says Portsmouth and Prestonburg. So whoever this is. So if this is your partner, just take everything I said as if I was talking to your partner. But let me know next time, because otherwise it's confusing. So which one's your partner? Do I have him wrong? I don't know. I'm confused now. I'm Taurus Mercury, and I'm confused. I'm confused. You wasn't expecting what? What were you expecting? What? What did I do? You're the Libra. Okay, so you're the 12th house person. So, and having all these planets in the 12th houses, you got 3 of them there. There is a big focus there. So again, I wonder if you have anything to do with counseling, because when the 10th house ruler is in the 12th, I mean, you can see people who have to work with other people's pain and suffering. It's sort of interesting. Joe Biden's got his 10th house ruler in the 12th house. Chris Brennan has his 10th house ruling in the 12th house. So the Aqua rising is your partner. No, don't be sorry. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. I'm just confused. That's all. Don't be sorry. You have an unhappy Venus square an unhappy Jupiter. So Jupiter technically is overcoming Venus by a superior square, but Jupiter's retrograde and in detriment, and Venus is in fall, right? So this, I mean, I shouldn't be laughing, but this is money stuff and children stuff. Venus is mental health stuff and relationship stuff. So I'm wondering if you've had partners take money from you, or money issues with partners in some way, or a partner got you into debt. Like you got into debt for a guy or a person or a partner. Something about money and a partner? No? Hit the like oh, thank you, priestess. Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, let's look at him because I got to move on to other people. Aquarius rising like me, but very late Aquarius. I still read whole sign though, so this is first house. First house ruler in the 12th. Saturn definitely likes Capricorn. He rules it, but in the 12th is still difficult and retrograde. I'd be concerned with this person setting their own boundaries. There's something very isolated about this person and very wounded. Probably fear. Fear. Some sort of fear, trauma they're carrying around. You see? Oh, you see what camera looks like right now. Okay. I wanted to make sure, because I'm not looking at this. I'm looking at the chat. Your first divorce was rough. Yeah, all that. Yeah, so money probably came into your divorce stuff. When doesn't money come into divorce? But I specifically think that your husband or your ex, whatever, was taking from you or was hiding money or doing something. It was something not nice and something or got you into debt, right? Got you into debt somehow with their bullshit. But this person, Venus not happy either. Fourth house, issues with dad and mom. So, maybe mom had a really bad temper. Mom maybe not nice. Yeah, and Saturn trying the moon. That can be good in some ways, but it can also be the mama trauma stuff and mental illness stuff. Something quite isolated, isn't it? The moon's overcoming Saturn. So very emotional. Emotions sort of winning out over reason, perhaps. And 7th house sun, codependent probably. A little bit of codependency. Possibly, doesn't have to be. 11th house ruler. Anyway, let's look at synastry really quick. Bad stuff first. Pluto square the sun. That's a rough one. Hard to separate, but it's like Pluto doesn't want to let the sun go. The sun makes Pluto feel seen, but there's some sort of dominant struggle going on. Someone wants control, and typically the Pluto person, which is Ilva. But this is just the way I would read it. No Pluto from them. Okay. So Saturn oppositions are tough. That's to Jupiter. That's to Jupiter. So it might feel like you squash his fun, you know, or irresponsibility, whatever you want to say. Jupiter square Mars. So this kind of stuff, it could be good for passion, but then it blows up arguments. There's probably great sex. And look, his Mars conjunct your Venus, so that's why you're in love, right? You get fucked really good. So I can't say the F word too many times. But yeah, great sex. And then sort of like this romance thing going on, at least with you, because your Neptune is trying his Venus. So again, looking out for ignoring some of the red flag. So not over apologizing for people, you know? Jupiter square Mars both ways. Excuse me. I mean, oh, Moon conjunct Venus. That's lovely. That's very lovely. And Venus conjunct. You see, this is closer. I like this one, Moon conjunct Venus. Because he can relax with you and feel secure with you and makes you feel beautiful. He makes you feel beautiful. You make him feel secure. Good communication, perhaps, or at least the potential for it. Yeah. Potentially good communication. So, okay. Ilva. Ilva. Where the hell? There's Lizzie, there's Ilva. There's Aubrey. There's Elizabeth. 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 3:15. Beware the Ides of March. I had to say it. Beware. Anyone who's familiar with Julius Caesar. Was that the play? Julius Caesar? Right? Noble Brutus. Madison. See, everyone puts the time last. I think a lot of people do that, but Solar Fire puts it right after the date, so it screws me up. Hello, Wisconsin. You know what's great about Wisconsin is, they just elected a judge to the Supreme Court who could help, hopefully, reinstate abortion rights. At least they have enough votes to now. So there's Elizabeth. A little bit Elizabeth in the chart. A little bit of this. Oh, whoever the hell this is. Person. I need to get glasses at some point. I had glasses and I never used them. 7:31 a.m. Waterloo. Waterloo. Bill and Ted. Where they take Napoleon to a water park called Waterloo. So Elizabeth, your 7th house ruler, is also not happy in Virgo. So you've been having not a fun time with relationships, in your 4th house. Also has Saturn. So potentially an absent or abusive father as well. Definitely not a fun childhood. So not trying to be a bitch, but and then Saturn opposite the sun. Wow, goodness gracious. You had a rough go, didn't you? Again, it feels like we're stifled. Like we're just kept in this confinement of a box. Again, that also signals dad issues, though. You see? Oh, you were also approaching a new moon. You're a balsamic moon baby, which is sort of very dark and reflective. But at the same time, there's a naivety that's coming on because you're approaching the new moon. Mercury's not happy. I have Mercury retrograde too in my chart. We can be quite slow, but you see, when Mercury's in Pisces, it's like, it's a total Monet, right? It's like from far away you can see the image, but close up it's a bunch of splotches. Or I say it's like putting Vaseline on the lens of a video camera, stuff like that. I'm joking, but you understand what I'm saying. It has a hard time communicating. Can see what it wants to say in its head. Oh, and this is your first house ruler, and in the 10th. So, there's been difficulties with your life direction. Perhaps you don't know what you want to do, or you feel like what you do is at odds with what you want to do or who you want to be. You know, you're probably, oh goodness, 10th house ruler isn't happy, is he? Again, a lack of life direction. You know, or having your life direction stifled and stunted all over and over again. Obstacles, perhaps, like really difficult obstacles. Where's Libra? 5th house. Your children or a child may be neurodivergent or have depression or something like that. You probably do yourself. I imagine maybe you've had addiction issues. Maybe you're the counseling one. Maybe you're the type of person that's a counselor for people. Who you find yourself sort of taking care of people. Maybe to your own detriment. Goodness gracious. Oh, but, well, this is wonderful. You see, that's not wonderful. I was about to say Mars going through your 2nd house, just watch spending money, I always say. So, because when Mars goes through our 2nd house, we just have a tendency to rack up expenses that we weren't intending. You see, so, Jupiter will go through your 12th house. I mean, it's more contemplative. You might have a, not a bad feeling, but a good desire to sort of go into seclusion, to sort of reflect and not get into the drama and the loudness, just sort of, your meditative state or whatever. Who else eclipses. So, I mean, same thing happened with you. You're going into the 11th and 5th house axis. So now it's like coming out of your cocoon, right? So between now and October, it's like emerging into the light of day. But see, the difficult part is now Saturn is going through your 10th house. Oh, I'm doing relationship. Sorry. Well, this dude, or this person has Jupiter in their 9th house. The 7th house ruler in the 9th house. So they want someone who they can be philosophical with. Maybe shares their religion. I imagine this person had a difficult experience of religion growing up because Mars is in the 9th house. But they can be quite passionate. Maybe a spiritual person, but they need to share their spirituality with someone. Right? So Capricorn moon makes it very difficult, though. Saturn conjunct the ascendant. So this is a person who might be codependent also. Keeps trying to look for themselves and their value through other people. Look at that, 12th house too. 2 depressed people together. Look at that. Maybe you both, want to do drugs together or hide out in the forest together. I don't know. Let's see if you're saying anything. You've been examining how slow you are. Medical bills for children. Yeah, that seems like a difficult thing, isn't it? I'm sorry. Synastry, biwheel. Oh, wait, no, I'm not trying to look at that. I just wanted to look at the grid because I got to quickly go to other things and people and stuff. I went for 3 goddamn hours last night. That was too much. It's too much. I shoot for 2. Like, I try and keep it to 2. Like, I do the first hour a topic and the second hour your guys' stuff. So the sun is really getting hit here. His sun, or their sun. Your Mercury, your Venus, your Mars, your Jupiter. So, I mean, you definitely like him. I mean, he's the apple of your eye. But you see, you build up his confidence. You make him feel handsome and attractive and all that sort of stuff. But you see, when Venus is conjunct the sun like that, that's often a sign of a lot of attraction. Venus is conjunct. Look at that. I've had that with people before. That's a very harmonious thing. We relate to each other in similar ways. So that's pretty cool. Is Venus, wow, is lighting you up. Venus sextile Mercury, we talked about that earlier. That's great for shared understanding and being able to approach each other in a constructive way. Venus trine Jupiter, gosh, cheering each other on. Again, there's all these signatures of you pumping him up and building up his confidence. So, I mean, that's good because he seems like he's very unconfident, not confident. Uranus square Mars, that tends to burn stuff out really quickly, but there's some good Saturn here. So, I mean, your Saturn tried his moon, so maybe you're the one that keeps it together. But your Saturn, like exactly square his moon, is so rough. That's a really, really rough one. Like exact to the minute, really, really rough. I mean, it's just it's binding in a way because it holds us together. We don't want to leave, but it's like with or without you. With or without you. With or without you. Oh, I can live with or without you. That kind of thing. So that's the tough one. But all this Venus stuff, he definitely is attracted to you, and he's definitely attractive to you, and it could work long term. I mean, it could. Oh, his Pluto opposite your sun. That's another doozy. But it could work long term with some of that Saturn. Your Pluto trine his Mars. That's kind of hot, but there's these things to watch out for. Trying to control the situation, perhaps. Now I've learned that love is not possession. Handyman fixing up the joint. He's more of an astronomer than an astrologer. Let's see who else is here. So we did Elizabeth. Oh, wait, we did. Who the hell? Why can't I find where I am? Why don't I see where I am? Ooh! What the hell? Well, there's Waterloo. There's Priestess Shakti. Where's Priestess? I think I have your chart. Dictator of the world when you were asked to be what you want to. Yeah, I know. I probably said that before. So Priestess Shakti, what's your person? What's your person? Oh. Priestess Shakti. Why is this all wackadoodle? I hate Windows. I hate Windows, especially Windows 11. Windows 11 is rotten. It's rotten. So let me look for Priestess Shakti, but I need your person. I think I have you in here. I'm not seeing it. Search alpha. Priestess. No. I don't have your thing saved. I don't have your thing saved, priestess. I've gone 30 minutes over. So if you're not here, I'm sorry. Priestess. Priestess Shakti. Oh, Shakti. Shakti, Shakti. Oh, Shakti. Shakti, Shakti. Okay, I'm sorry, baby. Send your stuff next time and we'll go over it. But I'm not feeling well and I've got to go. Well, I love you. Thank you for coming. Please like the stream and share and whatever. I thought we hit some good stuff. I think the new stuff is cool and it's fun. I don't know what you all think, but it's fun for me. You know, I mean, going over astrological topics too, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't tie it to actual real world events. Like everyone wants to hear about themselves, which is wonderful, but then you do interact with the real world and the wider world, you know. So it's important to see how astrology connects to actual events, because that's what it was. Because that's what it was intended to do and intended to be used for. So anyway, I'll double check and see if Shakti's here. I'm sorry, Shakti. We'll have to do yours later. We'll have to do it next time. I'm supposed to be on tomorrow. We can do relationship reprise, relationship astrology reprise. But I'm terribly hungry and I have to pee. And I've gone 30 minutes over. So please, we have wonderful information in this. Like the goddamn stream and subscribe, or I will get all Mars combust, you know. So please, 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 please. And I'll be live tomorrow too. So bring partners info again. It's good to have it written down in history. I know, yeah. Exactly. So anyway, I love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please, please, please share and everything. And, I have a Patreon now, so I'm going to start sharing that, because Saturn's in my second house.